So I just packed up camp up here in Santa Fe National Forest. Now I just gotta find my way out about 15 miles or so to the nearest highway, and then I can start heading through the desert south to Gila National Forest in southern New Mexico. So here we go. Since I was staying at this location for about 2 weeks, I've actually made this drive a couple times going into town to get groceries. Town's far away, about an hour and a half, and I have to go up into the mountains near Colorado actually. But yeah, it was a really nice drive at night, and in this shrub area I actually saw a big herd of elk twice I think, so that was cool. But yeah, about an hour later the elevation really dropped and I got into the desert. The drove took me past Albuquerque and through a lot of open desert, and eventually I made it to the south end of the Gila National Forest, where I started to explore and look for a good camp spot. The cool thing about the Gila National Forest is it's all tucked away in these mountains that just spring up in the desert, so I kind of got to find a way to get in, and then I can explore. Once I'm in, it should be a little bit of an oasis with freshwater springs and the Gila River running through it. Should be really nice, so I'm excited for this. The Gila River is one of the biggest rivers in this dry, arid region of the US. It actually flows all the way into Arizona, but this is where the headwaters are. So it's a really beautiful area full of these springs that feed into it, and it's actually where Geronimo is said to have been born. Living nomadically across the US has taught me so much about the native cultures here, and even since I was a kid I've always had such a big interest in it. So to stay here where Geronimo, one of my biggest heroes, lived, it was just magical to me. And after coming here and seeing all that this geographic marvel of an area has to offer, I totally understand how the Apache were able to use this land to such a benefit for them, using the clay of the area to form adobe cliff dwellings and the crazy rock formations that are all over the place. There's caves everywhere that I could find. And later on I'll do a lot of hiking and really show you as I hike towards some really cool hot springs. But look, I think I just found the perfect spot. Right by the water, plenty of shade, big trees to tie things up. This'll be it. But I did already drive really far down this road, so I kind of want to see where it goes. Now this is a really cool spot too. And I was thinking about this one, but it's a little too close to the water for my liking in case it ever flooded. And it's a bit visible from the road for my liking. Plus I really liked that big cool tree at my spot. Oop, looks like there's another little road there. This goes to a little spot, but doesn't really go anywhere, just kind of wraps around. So now that I'm back around, let's continue through this water crossing. I would eventually reach the end of this little road and saw a little hiking trail. At the time I didn't know what it was. I thought I would just go into the woods a little bit along the creek, but later a hiker would tell me that it goes to really cool hot springs, so eventually I would take that hike. But now I'm going back to that spot I found to get some sleep and start setting up in the morning. But actually, as I began to set up, I realized I have a leak in my front left tire, so I had to fix that first.
Since I deflated my tires a bit to go off-roading to about 32 psi, and they're usually at 45, 46, so this one had that rim problem before that I fixed, so I figured it might deflate itself without the pressure.
I ended up having to go in town to get a new tire repair kit. It ended up working out just fine, and I even stopped at the hardware store to pick up some stuff for a new project on my truck. But I'll show you guys that when I'm done. First, let's check out the area. I actually didn't even have to leave my campsite to see all the wildlife that the area had to offer. All kinds of animals would come up to my campsite, from dozens of big blue pinon jays to hordes of peccaries, or locally known as javelinas, stealing all my food at night. And if you're not from this part of the US, you might not be familiar with these species like the collared peccary or even the pronghorn antelope that come down here from the Rockies in the winter. But in fact, this area is also home to the classic American animals like mountain lions and the occasional black bear. But the animal I wanted to spot most of all in this area was the quadrumundi, a long-nosed relative of the raccoon that is mostly native to Central and South America, but actually lives in this part of the US. So yeah, I was super excited to explore this area and see all the wildlife that calls it home. But first I needed to take care of my own home. So the first week I was here, I spent getting my truck in order and actually adding a whole new component to it that I'll show you guys now. I actually found a rundown shack around here with a bunch of random scrap wood, so I had an idea what I wanted to make, this platform that folded out. I originally wanted it to slide out, but folding it made it a lot easier to build. So I did that and did have to end up going to the hardware store to get more wood and some strong metal components so that I wouldn't have to suffer any structural stability on it. But all in all, it worked out and I spent less than $100 on it. And I also got some metal brackets and some paint so that I could turn that antler I found in the last episode into a cool little coat hanger. I was actually pretty surprised by just how hard it was to drill into this antler, but it worked out and it's very sturdy and I can hang it from pretty much anywhere on my truck. And while I was at the hardware store, I also found this 1000-degree welder's blanket that I hope to incorporate later. It's much stronger and sturdier than the last one I had that ripped apart in the wind. You see, I made this little wood stove from furnace components at the hardware store, and I want to incorporate that welder's blanket in case I ever want to use it for more than just cooking and to really keep myself warm. But while I was here in Gila, it was plenty warm. Plus, while I was here, they actually began a stage 1 fire restriction, so I wasn't even allowed to have a fire unless it was in a Forest Service provided structure. But I'm definitely really excited now to head back up north at some point and try this thing out in colder weather. Over the course of the week that I was building this, there was actually 2 hikers that came by and asked for help. One of them was very lost, and he said that he was hiking from Mexico to Canada on the CDT trail and that he is completely lost and almost out of food. So I brought him to town and I was glad to help, and he was a really cool guy. But the other hiker was actually with his girlfriend trying to find these hot springs where he wanted to take her, and I didn't know about these, so later I would actually go out and look for them on my own. So let's go do that. Got a lot of cool pictures on this trip.